Conventions can be some of the most fun possible in such a short amount of time. It is a great way to meet up with friends and put faces to the online people that you've met. But are all conventions created equal? Not necessarily. Depending on your personal tastes and preferences, some cons might be better than others. And in this video today, I wanted to discuss my top 3 favorite furry conventions and my top 3 least favorite conventions. So stay tuned in the video to find out what they are. So I have been to my fair share of furry and non-furry conventions, and I want to share my favorite and least favorite cons that I have been to. I'm going to rank 2 separate sections and talk about a few different things that I like about the con or don't like about the con. I'm going to do 2 categories of my top 3 favorite and my top 3 least favorite cons. So I first want to talk about my top 3 favorite cons, because everyone wants to know the best places to go, and at the end of the video, I will share my least favorite cons. So, starting out with my 3rd favorite furry convention, that is going to be Furry Weekend Atlanta. This con, of course, is based in Atlanta and boasts some of the most fun that I have ever had at a con. This one is actually farther away from me than any other con on this list, but I think it is worth the drive. The con is very well run, or was at the time that I went. I know recently with COVID, everything probably has changed, and I have not gone since the pandemic, so I can only speak for pre-pandemic events. But if you are in or around the Atlanta area or the southern part of the USA, definitely check out Furry Week in Atlanta. Tons of fun. It is large enough that it gets a decent crowd. The Dealer's Den is pretty big, and they host a dance competition, which is a big draw for me, so definitely consider checking that one out. Second on this list is going to be Anthro New England. Yep, up in Boston is where Anthro New England is, and it is a blast to go to. It is a little bit smaller than FWA, but still equally as fun, if not more fun. Anthro New England also has a dance competition, a decently sized Dealer's Den, and also has tons of wonderful panels, panelists, and other events that really pique congoers' interests. I have gone there with several friends, and everyone there is super welcoming, and the con was extremely well organized. Again, these are all based on pre-pandemic opinions of mine. I unfortunately have not gone since the pandemic started, but I did not have to deal with a line at Anthro New England. I did go for the prepaid pass, so I didn't buy my pass at the con door, which might have helped with avoiding that line. But again, this is about a mid-sized con. I think they get around 3,000 to 4,000 attendees. I know they just had a con in 2022. I have not yet seen any con footage of Anthro New England 2022, but I also have not heard anything bad, so I am assuming that it is run just as well as it was before the pandemic. And before I get to my top number 1 furry convention, I did want to do a quick little bonus con. This one is actually a non-furry related con, but I wanted to mention it because this has been my absolute favorite anime convention that I have been to. And that one is Colossal Con in Sandusky, Ohio. This one is around 20,000 people that attend this con. It is in the middle of the summer, but it is one of the best run anime cons that I've been to. I have been to anime cons within the Ohio, Kentucky, Pennsylvania, and I think Indiana area.
I think one of the cons I went to was Indiana. I'm not sure.
I would have to look, but this is the best one that I have been to so far. It has a very unique shtick to it, being Colossal Con, and it is at a water park. So a lot of con goers will actually tailor their cosplays around the pool. So they will do swimsuit versions of the characters they are cosplaying as, which I think is super cool and makes this con extremely unique. So if anime or cosplay cons are your thing, definitely check out Colossal Con. They also have been extremely welcoming to furries. There is a very large furry group that attends, and I have met up with that furry group before. Even non-furries at Colossal Con are very welcoming, and I will talk about another anime con in my least favorite con section that was not as welcoming. So, definitely a good one to consider if you are up in the Sandusky area and are a furry. But back to my number one favorite furry con ever is, unsurprisingly or surprisingly, Anthrocon. Yes, one of the biggest and most notable cons up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania is Anthrocon. I have gone to this con more than I have gone to any other con. I love how it is run. I think it is pretty much a well-oiled machine at this point. I think it is one of the most long-standing cons still around right now. Wonderful. There is tons of stuff to do, and the whole added bonus that the city gets into it makes for a really wonderful experience, especially now that the Fursuit Parade attracts just actual bystanders and spectators. I think is amazing. Having the chance to walk through that parade and just see tens of thousands of people lined up just to watch the furries walk around is a ton of fun and really just an unforgettable experience. Not to mention, so many of my friends go to that con, which makes that con so much more enjoyable. The opportunity to meet new people and the huge dealer's den is a huge draw for me, as well as all of the dance competitions and panels. Definitely should be a bucket list con that you should attend at least once in your life. But now let's go to the darker side of my list today, which are my top 3 least favorite cons. And these are, of course, just my personal opinion, and just because I don't like them doesn't mean that you will also not like them or that you shouldn't attend. I just personally had bad experiences with these cons, and I will very much not be back. So, for my third least favorite con, I'm actually going to discuss the anime con that I have a huge problem with, and this one is in Columbus, Ohio, and that one is called Ohayocon. And Ohayocon, though being a decently sized anime convention, was actually one of the poorest run cons I have ever been to. They had registration lines that were, when I went, and I've been to it a couple times, registration lines were probably 4 to 5 hours long. And I know that there are some cons where the line is even longer, but that was for pre-registration. And I'm sorry, standing in line and wasting half of your day is absolutely no fun, and it's a huge turnoff for me. Handling lines is something that I know is definitely tough since they run on a volunteer basis, but it was just absolutely unacceptable for a con that big. I feel should have been handled much better. Not only that, but it was in an incredibly poor location that was very difficult to get to and walk around in once you were there, even if you were in or out of costume. I wore several different types of costumes there, including cosplay and fursuit, and I found it incredibly cumbersome to get around. And not to mention the lack of inclusion of anything that wasn't a very specific niche anime that went there. They were very furry exclusionary. I got harassed, I got followed, I got threatened, I got called very derogatory slurs, hateful slurs towards the LGBTQ community, all sorts of horrible things. It was a very scary and unwelcoming experience, and I absolutely do not recommend going to this con if you are a furry. Other than that, my second least favorite con that I personally didn't enjoy going to was Vernal Equinox. This one is in Canada, and The reason I didn't like going to this one has nothing to do with the actual con itself. It is the whole fact that I had to cross the Canadian border. So my problem really lies here with the border patrol instead. Having to drive and have my car searched was a terrifying experience. I didn't have anything like bad in my car, but having them tear through my fursuit and potentially risk ruining all of my stuff was not a fun experience. So unfortunately, I will be very unlikely to ever re-attend that convention, or at least I will not suit at that con if I ever do go back. But it is a smaller con, and for the size, I don't really see it worth it to travel all the way back to Toronto for that con, unfortunately. For local Canadians, though, it is probably one of the best cons that you could attend. So, just my personal experience. Again, I'm sure a ton of people that attend it love it. On to my all-time least favorite con. I don't know how to explain it, but the con that I liked the least out of all of the cons that I've been to is actually Midwest Fur Fest. I have a lot of different issues with this con, from their hotel lottery that they did to the hotel that I did rent out being completely canceled and being unable to find my accommodations, to having to stay in a hotel that was completely down the street and then walk to the con, only to find out that when I am actually at the con space, everything is super spread out. The dealer's den was completely separated off from the rest of the convention, and everyone, despite it being at a supposedly wonderful time of the year around December, it was a horrible experience, and everyone at that con just seemed to be angry and mean, and even friends that attended, or supposed friends that attended, were very just angry and upset, and it was very hard to meet up with people just due to the logistics of how the con was set up. Again, this was pre-COVID, so I am only sharing my opinion of a pre-COVID con, and they may have sorted out all of their issues at the con, but unfortunately, due to the distance of Chicago from where I live, it is very unlikely that I will be back anytime soon for the amount of money that it costs to travel there, and for all the problems that happened, it just isn't worth it to me. Again, local people to that con probably have a much better experience. Those that live far away and want to meet up with friends may have a better experience there, but I will stick to Anthrocon as being my extra large furry con of choice. But that's all for this video, guys. These were my top 3 best furry cons and my top 3 worst cons. What are your top 3 furry or non-furry cons, and what are your top 3 least favorite, if you have any? Share them in the comments below, and hey, if you liked this video, definitely please consider liking and subscribing, as it does really help me and my channel. And hey, did you agree with my con experiences? Did you have something similar? Do you have a different con that you want to share that might have been more deserving of a top 3 spot? Whether that was best or worst, share it in the comments below. But that's all for now, guys. As always, I am Kuro from Kimono Dungeon. Thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye.